Okay, for this session, we are going to be looking at gathers and flares. Now, first of all, I'm going to open up a new document. Make sure that inches is selected as my measurement. I want it on portrait, and 8.5 by 11 is a good size for this drawing. So that looks good. We can create. Now, as always, to set up my drawing, I want to do my pullout, which gives me my pen tool and the rest of the great tools. That's a 1. And then today, I'm definitely going to be using my reflect tool, which is down here. So I'm again going to do the pullout and grab that out over here. And I like to keep those handy, kind of upper left-hand side of my drawing board. Looks good. I want to make sure that my layers are available and handy. So view, window, layers. If you don't see them, then you can always find it under the pull down menu. And it's near the L's in layers, and it's on the right-hand side in your palettes. And left-hand side is tools, right-hand side is palettes today. Now, most of what we're doing today is a review of what we covered last week, with a major exception is we are going to be using something called stroke profiles. And there's 2 ways to access your profiles. One is a pull down menu up here. And there's the same pull down menu as over here, which actually gives you the whole stroke controls. I want to round out my corners anyway. This was the same function that we used to create the dashed lines when we were doing our top stitching. This week, I want you to go down to profiles, and you'll see you've got uniform is the regular profile we use when we're drawing. Then we've got these other ones, and it's actually profile number 4 that we're going to want to use. And I will show you in a moment why. So I'm going to draw a couple of just straight up and down lines. And I can hit escape to disengage my pen tool. Oops. Z. There we go. Make them different lengths. Yeah. Boom. There we go. Escape. And another one. Okay. So we have the, and maybe I'll curve a couple so you can get a feeling of what I'm doing, that as to how it will relate to our drawing. And as you will recall, you can click and pull to create some nice curves. Those handlebars give you lots of options when shaping your curves, because we're going to be doing a lot of that today on our draft of the dress. Okay, so right now we have straight up and down, nice lines, but I want something that goes thick at the bottom, thin on the top, to get the idea of a fold that's happening within a dress, because we're going to be doing a dress with pleats. Okay, so if I marquee and select my lines here, I head over to profile. I slide down to profile 4. Now, it's kind of hard to see on a 1 point, which is the width of our drawing line. But if we go up, you will very quickly see what the point of that profile does. It goes thick at the bottom and thin at the top. So right now we're getting eyelashes, but we want something more like that, which will give us beautiful curve lines when we are doing the technical for our dress. So once again, profile number 4 is the one we're going to use today. Okay. But I want to go back to, and again, you can go up here and change it back. You can go down here to change it. It really doesn't matter. It's whichever's closer to whatever you're working on. There's usually about 3 ways to access a tool in Illustrator. So Control R, which gives me my rulers. I want to file place my croquis, first of all. And you will recall that if I just click into the document with a loaded cursor, it'll be the size of the actual image, or I can click and marquee, and the marquee will then be the size of the photo image that I put in. Okay, so that's layer 1. I'm going to add a couple more layers here. And then I'm going to lock layer 1 because I don't want it moving around. There we go. That looks nice. Now I want to add something else to my drawing board right now. I'm actually going to move you out of the way, Mr. Stroke. You can always click on it and it will close up again. You can open it and close it just by clicking on it. Okay, I want to file place the rendering of the dress that I'm going to be drawing today, which is in your folder. And again, if I clicked it, it would be the actual size, but I actually want to click and marquee because I want it to be about that big. Okay, so just as there are, a whole lot of different ways to do things in Illustrator, there are different ways to do technicals, and you've got some nice links to other demos and technicals. You've got Robin, who wrote the textbook for us, and you've got Professor Sparks has done a nice YouTube, which I put in the links. I do mine a little differently, especially with this one. So I like to kind of look at the garment first. And with this one, I've got a bit of, I've got pretty much symmetrical happening, and then a little bit of asymmetry at the hem, but it's pretty much an empire waist with a shoulder yoke that has some sewing lines, like some gathers going in there that are released. And then there's a bit of a puff at the sleeve and at the cuff. I think that's pretty good. And again, Command or Control 0 gets you back to the actual size. If you ever need to move the drawing page around, you can hold Shift and see that little hand guy? That allows you to move. The little hand tools on the lower left-hand side as well. You need to move around quickly. So I think in terms of my construction today, I'm actually going to do the left-hand side, flip and join the way I did the shirt from last week. And I'm actually going to do the garment in separate pieces. I think I will not have a separate piece for the yoke and attached to the front bodice, but I will have sleeve, upper bodice, and then skirt will be the third section. And I'm going to actually draw the left-hand side of the sleeve and bodice, and then I'm going to do the right-hand side of the skirt because I actually like the skirt shaping better on the right. Okay, so here we go. I want to make sure my fill is white, my stroke is black. That looks good. And I'm going to head on over here. I'm going to black arrow move. Oops, get out of there. Keep up a little bit. Okay, it's sometimes goes into isolation mode, which is not a function I use, but drives me crazy. To get out of that, you go back one level and it should get you out of there because it's not a function I use. And sometimes I end up in isolation mode and it drives me a little crazy because I don't want to be there. All right, so let's do our bodice because it's looking like the buttons are ornamental. It's not actually a fully working fastening at the front. So it's basically, I'm going to draw it, flip it, join it, and then I will put down some buttons there. Okay. So I've got my pen handy. I think I'm going to do it this way where I do it, click, click. I'm doing it a little farther away from the body than I did last week's because I want to have a little more fit for the dress. It's got a little bit more shaping happening. I'm going to do a little bit in and out. And then rather than go down to the waist, I'm actually going to go closer to the bust line and head down to about here. And then see where I get that little pink line where it says intersect? What that is happening is Illustrator is telling me I am now directly below my point up here. I don't want to join them, but I do want to finish the point right beneath because when I flip it, it'll be nice and symmetrical. Oops, that is not nice. And I want to keep that horizontal. There we go with the rest of my dress. So what I have is this. It's half open shape. And I'm going to hit escape. And I'm going to disengage my pen tool. All right, now I'm going to go back with my angle tool. What do they call it on here? Path tool. And I'm going to go and give it a little bit of shaping as per my photograph or digital rendering, which we're working on over there. So again, and black arrow can deselect. Same idea, still open on the front because I want to flip it and join it. I'm going to give it a tiny little bit of a curve in the armpit there. Good. Okay, that looks nice. I'm going to white arrow, select that armhole point only by marquee over it, like that. And then I'm going to Apple C, Apple F, or Command F if you are not on a PC, on an Apple, or Control F, and then Control J. So what that has done is created the perfect shaping on that armhole as per my last demo. Going to add the 2 new points. 1, 2. On that new line. And then make sure I actually put them on that line. I'm going to go in a little closer because I'm not sure I put them on the inside or the outside line because it's quite shallow. There we go. Let's try that again. 1, 2. So I'm adding 2 new points with the drawing tool. And then I'm going to white arrow and pull. And that will give me the beginnings of my new sleeve, which I'm going to use the away from the body position, but I'm going to leave room for a cuff. Okay. So that's looking good. I'm now going to add another point up here. And now I'm just going to use my keypad to give it some height because that's got a little bit of a puff sleeve to it. And then I'm going to go in and pull. Get a nice little puff happening. Black arrow deselect. And I'm, rather than try to manipulate these 2 points, I'm actually going to add 2 new points again. And one is there. One is there. I'm going to pull it away from the body. If your curve is kind of twisted up like that, you can just grab the handle and move it around. Or make it back into an angle and do it again. There we go. Okay. So that's looking pretty good for my front. And if something is a straightforward cuff, it's basically just I'm going to, rather than use the croquis perfectly, I'm actually gonna make this a little shorter because that'll give me a nice little square. Now see, I'm getting that little circle at the bottom of my pen tool. That's allowing me to close that shape. And that will give me a nice section of the garment that I can fill. This all looks really good. I'm going to now marquee, which is when I select everything with my black arrow. I have half my bodice, one sleeve, one cuff selected. I'm going to double click on my reflect tool. And then I'm going to hit copy as opposed to OK. OK will just flip the original. Copy gives me 2. And then while it's still selected, I'm just going to marquee it over. There we go. And get that in place. Looks nice. And then I'm going to white arrow, marquee, join at the top, and join at the bottom. So now I have closed shape, closed shape, closed shape, closed shape. Very handy. Okay. Now, one thing to consider, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about fills right now, because what I have is that looks like 1 point, but it's actually 2 points that are joined. And the reason why it's so important to make sure that you've got these joined is because if you don't, and that is not joined, I'm just going to delete the line in the middle. Oops. I think this is actually even overlapping. Okay, so I'm going to move 1 point over. I'm going to move the other point over in that direction just to make the point. Is that going to work? Yes. Okay, so if those are not joined, and I'm going to go Command 0 to, we're looking at drawing. This is exaggerating, but if you're trying to fill something that's not joined, it ends up, oh, looks like Illustrator has patched that because it used to give this really ugly white triangle. Huh. All right, well, they fixed that. Nice job, Illustrator. That was new because before, if something wasn't closed, you'd have a whole white section where it wasn't, but they have fixed it. Way to go, Illustrator. All right. I'm still going to work on having this as a closed shape. I'm going to marquee those 2 open points, right click and join. And I'm pretty sure the other route is object path join. Yes, it is. Good. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to go back to my bodice, looking very nice. And I think I'm going to do the skirt now. So for this one, I'm actually going to start on the right because I'm liking the shaping on that. And I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to actually trace it right off my skirt. So I'm going to make the object arrange move to front. So I want to have the photograph on top, first of all. Then I want to head over to its transparency, and you're going to see why in a minute. Transparency is very handy because I can take that transparency down a little bit. And it's also really good when you're doing shears and things like that. But for us, I want to make my skirt basically, my dress, Remember, hold shift when you're making things larger or smaller. And make that a little bit larger. There we go. Not too big. That's not bad because I want to use that nice looking shaping on the skirt for my drawing. Okay, so that looks good. And then I'm going to Control X, which is cut. And then I'm going to head down to layer 2 and I'm going to Control F, which is paste in front. And it's now going to be behind because it's on the layer beneath our drawing layer, right? And I'm going to lock that layer so I cannot accidentally pick up the dress the way I just accidentally picked up my bodice. All right. So let's head back to our skirt. And I'm going to draw in a little bit of a waist, take it down to the hem. And I'm going to click and drag a little bit because I'm just going to do that curve shaping while I'm down here. Now, Illustrator automatically wants to draw the last thing that you drew. So if I'm drawing a curve, Illustrator wants to draw a curve next, but I want to go curve to angle because I'm going curved edge, but I want a nice strong angle here. So if you click on your last point, it will change it, right? See how like that, if I draw here, it's going to make a curve like that. I don't want that. So I want to click on that last point, and it's now going to be an angle. Isn't that handy? And then I can even pull here and curve while I'm drawing. Same idea. I don't want another curve because if I click in, it's going to do that. I don't want that. I want to go back, click on that point. So I want to go angle to curve to get all those lovely shaped curves that are on our dress. Put another point in real close. And if it doesn't fit perfectly the first time, you can always go back and move those points around, which I will demonstrate in just a moment. Like that's really not right place. So I'm going to have to move that. And I think I'm going to take this to center front. And I'm going to disengage my pen like that. So escape. Now, let's play around with some of our points with our white arrow and get it nice and close. The way that I use the transparency for my photo, I can also use for my fill, okay? Because right now I'm opacity 100%. I can take that down and I can now get that white arrow and have a full-on ham party. There we go. Oh, I'm loving this. Move the handlebars around to give you the shaping that you want for your lovely ham. That's looking pretty good. And if it's pretty minute, you can even use the keypad to move those points around. Okay. I'm liking that. Now I'm going to go back and I'm actually going to turn my opacity back to 100%. And right now I started here. I want to go back, continue on that point. If you're going to be drawing a new line, there's a little star, a little snowflakey star beside my pen. See that? That's saying I'm drawing a new line. But if you are starting a line that's already in play, basically, like I want to go to this point and continue and go to center front. See how my pen tool goes from the little star into the line? The line says I'm clicking on an existing open point like that. So then I'm now And then that little circle shows me that I'm closing the shape completely, and I'm not going to have trouble later when I'm trying to do clipping masks. Okay, so let's see if we can get that happening. There we go. Yeah, see, I've got that nice, this is me starting a new line. This is me attaching to my original. I'm going to take that to center front, and I again get that little pink intersect line, which tells me I am above my open point down here. Very handy. Okay. Escape. So again, I have half of my dress. And I think at this point, I'm actually going to do some of my lines on the dress before I flip it. I'm going to do the skirt and then I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to Control 0 and see what we're looking at. Looks nice. Then I'm going to head down here. And I'm going to, I think I'm just going to eyeball it looking at the other side. And these are just going to be random lines that are moving up your garment. Like that. I hit escape. There we go. Definitely want one there. Down there is looking good. Escape. Okay. And then, whoops, there we go. I want to select just those lines. And if you want to do multiple selections and you can't marquee, because normally I would just, I could lock that shape and then marquee. Because I'll be selecting the dress behind, which I do not want to do. So what you can do is you can black arrow, click on just the line, hold Shift, and only click on the lines. Okay. So I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines selected. Now we're going to head over to our very handy profiles. Go down to number 4, and it's going to give me some lovely shaping on that dress. Doesn't that look good? Oh, yes. Okay. And it's so easy. So once you got it looking great like that, I'm going to select all of this. I'm doing a marquee down here. Make sure you don't accidentally select stuff up here. But if it's only this stuff and half of my bodice or half my skirt, I can easily marquee. And this is why I always keep the lower layers locked, like this layer and this layer, so I don't accidentally pick up all the things that are underneath. I'm going to double click, copy, and I now have the other side of my dress. And I'm going to play around with the hem a little bit more because I want to add a little bit more shaping. I don't want it to be fully symmetrical because it will look like a seashell, which I don't want. That's looking good. Boom. Okay. Once you've got things where you want them, I'm going to select just, see at the moment I don't have any of my inside lines selected. I just have the right-hand side and the left-hand side of the skirt. So you can, if you have a spot where you can easily marquee, you can do that. Or you can click on one side of the skirt, hold Shift, click on the other, and then right-click join, right-click join. Make sure you do it twice because the first time joins the top, the second time joins the bottom. Now what you're going to see is all of a sudden, half of your fold lines disappear. This is not a tragedy. All this means is that when Illustrator joined this shape, took these two halves to make a new one, it ended up putting it in front of those guys. So what you want to do is then click on your skirt, object arrange, whoops, send to back or send backwards. And then magically they will reappear. Okay, but I want to fix my front because I don't love at all how this is looking, right? This I'm pretty okay with, but I definitely want to readjust what's happening here. And this is another cool thing about using white arrow. You were able to delete certain sections of your drawings if you select just their anchor points, right? Like, I'm going to marquee just my center front anchor points, and I'm going to hit delete. And you can see how just the lines and the points are deleted. Everything else is still in place in my drawing, which I want. So now I'm going to head back up to my transparency. Thank you. Stroke. I'm going to take the opacity down a little bit and see what I've got underneath because I want to draw that nice center front fold. And I think that will really take our technical to the next level. All right. Technically, obviously, technicals are supposed to be identical left and right-hand side, but you can see with this dress, it wasn't, you know, like you can have a bit of modulation and shaping on your technical if it is something like this. Okay, so I've got my pen tool and see how I'm not starting a new line. I'm attaching to the old one. Hello. I'm going to click and curve, click. I'm going to click back on that point, head up, and then I'm going to attach it. See, I'm getting a nice closed shape there. And then I'm going to go in with my white arrow and tweak those points down there. And I'm also going to move that one up a little bit because I can see the skirt underneath has that nice shape. I'm going to add one more line. So I'm going to take my opacity back to 100%. And I'm going to add one more line going here up. And I'm actually just going to grab this one. Whoops, black arrow. I'm going to grab this one, Control C, Control F. So I'm copying in front, and then I'm just going to move it over. Get it in place. And use my white arrow to move just the top point over a little bit so it moves up towards center front. Nice. Okay, so that is a rockin' looking skirt. I'm gonna throw buttons on my bodice, and I'm going to add a couple of release tucks on the yoke. So let's do yoke. Boom, boom. And this one, I'm going to do left-hand side, and then I'm going to just flip it the way I did the other ones. And I'm going to do some really small little lines. Let's take actually a look at our drawing now. I mean, sorry, our original. So I can see what I'm doing. So I'm not making things up here, which I do not want to do. Oh, I'm back in isolation mode, which I don't like. Thank you, Illustrator. I don't ever want to be in isolation mode. There we go. Let's get out of there. And I'm going to move you out of the way, and I'm going to take the opacity back up to 100%. Like that. Okay. Let's take a look at my shoulder and how those, so they're kind of coming right from the middle. Looks like the biggest one goes to about there. I want to be careful because I'm drawing on my layer 2. And what's going to happen is it's going to look like nothing's there because I'm actually an entire layer below, which I do not want to be. This is one of the drawbacks to working on multiple layers. So I'm actually going to step back, get rid of that line, lock you up again, head back up to layer 3. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to click and take that to about there. Escape. I'm going to take that one to there. I'm going to take escape, let go of my pen. Thank you. There we go. And maybe one more little one out there. Oops. Sometimes you have to go in really close to see what it is you're doing. There we go. Little guys, 1, 2, escape. And I'll do one more. Okay. Then I'm going to, you know the drill, select just those lines. I may have a problem with that one because the Illustrator wants to make that into 2 lines. Black arrow. Hold Shift. There we go. Let's see what it's going to do for me because I think the one in the middle may be a problem because the Illustrator doesn't see it as 2 different lines. We'll see. I can fix it. Don't worry. Correct. Oh, see, we don't want that. So what we're going to have to do is, I'm just going to delete that and draw a new line there. One going there. And one going there. If you want to pick up the attributes of something, by the attributes, it's the, like say if it's a top stitch line or it's one of these guys, you can always grab your eyedropper tool, select what you want to shift, change, and then it should, if it's behaving itself, which it's not. All right. Let's go back to plan A. There we go. I'm not sure why that didn't work. Usually you can eyedropper it. Maybe it doesn't like eyedroppering profiles. That might be new. Okay. Then I'm going to move these around a little bit to make it a little closer to what we're looking at in our, and again, I'm using the arrow key on the keypad to do that. That's looking better. And I think I want to put a little bit of a curve on my one in the middle. So I'm going to convert and just give it a mild little bit of a curve like that. Good. Same idea with that one. Give it a little bit of a curve. Okay, once you got something you like, you can select, hold shift on all these little guys. There we go. You know what? I'm going to do something else. That's getting really pokey. I'm actually going to lock the shape behind it because you don't have to actually lock an entire layer. You can select something and do a object. Where's my lock? Lock selection. And what that will do is, so pull down menu object, lock selection. That locks my bodice for the moment. And then I can marquee those quite easily and do my reflect. Take those to their side. And I'm going to, again, take a look at my drawing and play with them a little bit because they were not identical on both sides. Time to make that one a tiny bit shorter. Move them in a little bit. Give it a little bit of variety. Making sure that I don't accidentally go too far, which I have done. And again, precise stuff like this, sometimes you actually have to click and drag as opposed to the arrow keys, because cool thing about Illustrator is when you are about to attach to something else, like say I want to take that right to that line, it will highlight the line underneath, which is very handy when I'm doing something like this. There we go. Okay. Nice. Okay. I'd say I need a couple more lines down at the cuff. And I think I am going to object lock selection, just so I don't accidentally grab the sleeve underneath. You may want to put both bodice and sleeve on a lower layer and lock it, because that could be your choice. But I'm going to one. Make sure that everything comes right to the cuff line. That's good. So it's got to come in. And then I can, you guys know what I'm doing now. And hold shift, make sure they're all selected. Add the profile and then give it a tiny little bit of a curve. Add. And I'm going to make sure that that little one goes right into the cuff. Okay. I have my sleeve locked, so I'm just going to marquee those four. My dress. There we go. Go, and I'm going to reflect. And move those guys into place. Nice. Okay. And then you could play around with them on that side. Again, just so they don't look completely identical on both sides, which can look a little odd because they would not be in real life. And again, I'm using white arrow and my keypad to create a little variety in those. Okay. Final steps. I think I'm going to take that point in just one. I'm going to unlock my bodice. So I'm going to do object unlock all, and that will unlock them. I'm going to white arrow. I'm going to move that anchor point in one so it's closer. And I need to add our lines from the Empire waist. So I don't want to do that. There we go. It's really up to you if you want to click and curve while you're drawing, or if you want to leave them as angles and then come back and shape them. Sometimes I find it's easier to leave them as angles. I want to get rid of that point. There we go. No, I want to keep, because then I can get them in the right place and then I can come back and adjust and play with them. It can be tricky sometimes doing everything all at once, which once you get really strong, you will be able to do that. I want us to continue putting that corner. I don't want to put one there. Thank you, Illustrator. All right, I'm just going to do this. I'll play with these guys. All right, hold shift. Actually, not going to lock that again. Object, lock selection. So my bodice is locked. And then I'm going to marquee those lines. Add my, oh, that's why it's being so weird. Okay, so Illustrator remembers the direction you drew your line. And I thought I was starting down there and going up. It did not happen. So I ended up starting up here and going down. And if that happens, you can actually use the rotate tool, which will let you, you can move the points around too, but that's pretty handy for that as well. So that's the other tool that is sitting there on your reflect. I'm going to move the bottom points a little closer, like that. Because it looks like they're pretty close together. I'm going to lock that skirt too, because it keeps wanting to pick that up as well. Object, lock, selection. There we go. And I can easily move these babies around, which is what I want to do before I flip them. Okay, give them a little bit of a curve. There we go. It's almost just straight up anyway. Might leave that. Okay. Copy. Move that over. And I think I'm going to take those points higher because I'm looking at the drawing and they look like there's a lot of fullness in those gathers. All right. Nice. Okay. I've got one little overhang, which I want to get rid of. So I'm going to unlock all. And I want to grab. anchor up there and take it right to that point. Looking good. Finally, I'm going to do my button. Now, there should be a shapes tool here. There we go. I'm going to do the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold shift and draw a circle. I'm going to check it against our drawing. Okay. It's not too bad. I think I'm a little big, so I'm going to take it down. There we go. Okay. Now here you could Control C, Control V, 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 which I'm going to do and place them, or you could do something else, which I'm going to do the Control C, Control V. Let me just get my fill back before I go any further. You could always place it on the garment. Which is it, Command? Oh, no, there's one of the, it's like Option, or one of them allows you, there we go. Okay, so that was kind of a fun one. If you hold the Option key on the Mac, and I have to figure out what that is on a PC, you can just click and copy. There we go. Put those in place. Now, these are technically not actually evenly spaced on this illustration, but I want them to be evenly spaced. So I'm going to use a cool tool when you're using shapes. And it's called the Align tool. And I have to find it. There we go. So if you do the pull down window menu, and you're going to have something called the Align tool. And over here on the right, it distributes things evenly between the top and the bottom point, which does us a lot of good. So again, that is the Align tool. And it's very handy for evenly distributing objects. Okay, I'm going to, while I have these selected, drag them over to my dress and pull them into place. Oops. Object lock selection until I get these perfectly in place. That's looking better. Okay. Okay. So that is our dress. I'm going to real quickly just put in a back neckline. Actually, I want one more line up here. I can see right there. I want a second line down there. But I'm going to put in a back neckline. To do that, I think my bodice is still locked. Good. I'm going to head up here and point to point. Actually, I should be looking at what our original was. What does our original look like? Come back here. Oops. Okay, so it's kind of high up. And, okay, I was actually going to put lower. It's what I loved. Okay, so I'm going to head up here. I'm going to go point to point. Give it a little bit of an arc up here. And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to convert it back. I'm going to create a little diamondy shape, and you're going to see why in a moment. Careful not to mess with your buttons. We'll do it there. So it's a closed shape. Whoops, no, I don't want to do that. I attached to one of my points. Careful stuff like that. All right, there we go. I want a closed shape that's kind of diamondy. And I'm working on layer 2 because it's a red drawing line. So that would be why it looks like it's disappeared, because I'm actually on a different layer. Come back here. Oops. Edit, redo. There we go. I want to Control X and move it up to, there we go. So we have this weird looking shape that's now on the same layer as our drawing. I want to turn it gray. And that is because everything that's not on the front of the garment, if it's on the back of it, then it's gray, right? Like I'm going to send this backwards, object arrange, send to back. And then I'm going to turn it gray, and I have to find my swatches here. And for this one, I'm fine with just a gray swatch. Just pick a consistent one and use it for all of your technicals to indicate that is the back of the garment. Okay, looking good. One more little line down here. I think I'm actually just going to grab this one. I'm going to Control C, Control F it, and then move it over. And there we go. We'll come back here. You take that right to the hemline. Oh, I'm digging it. Okay, good. So that is our technical. I'm going to get rid of our croquis and our photograph of the garment. I'm going to make sure everything is unlocked. And then I'm going to marquee everything and group. Because at this point, I have a million little lines and shapes floating around, and I want to group it all so that I don't accidentally, so if I ungroup it, like pull one part and leave the rest. So you marquee it, right click group. Then I'm going to pull my naming information from my last drawing, which we did. Control C, head onto this one, Control F, ta-da, and I'm going to call this flared dress. You can use your type tool, head up here and just rename it. And we're going to call this in-class exercise because you have all been working on this while I have been demoing. File, save as. And there we have our amazing flared dress technical.